Welcome back to the L2RT podcast. This week we are going to talk about our brief moment with Battlefield 2042. After that, we are jumping into our first part of a three-part series of the L2RT Game of the Year award, where Jax and I are going to choose one game each per part as a Game of the Year contender. As usual, I'm your host Ron, and I'm joined by my good friend and co-host Jax.
Hey.
Usually, we'll do a little bit of catching up in this part before we start our podcast, but we already know what we have been playing in the past week. And it is the latest game that had come to the Xbox Game Pass via EA Play, Battlefield 2042. So, let us jump directly into this. The game was listed as one of the most anticipated games for me and many other gamers out there back in 2021, especially for those Battlefield 4 veterans. Unfortunately, on launch, this game was met with a lot of criticisms, mainly due to bugs, unrefined game mechanics. But after a year of post-launch development, the game is now in a much better state, and with it coming to Game Pass, we think it will be a great time for us to jump back in and have a try. Now, first of all, for our audience, we want you to know we had not been playing the game since the public beta 2 months before the launch. Hence, we cannot compare how it is at launch versus how it is now. What we can do is to discuss the experience of our time with the game, how it feels diving back into the Battlefield series as a newbie, and are we likely to keep on playing the game? So Jax, you actually tried the game a night before I did, thanks to the 10 hours game trial on Game Pass. How would you describe your solo experience on this multiplayer game?
Hey, thanks, Ron, for the intro. Now, so just a bit of the background for everyone, because you did mention, especially for the Battlefield 4 veteran, my Battlefield experience, apart from the first game, which I think was 1942, was Battlefield 1.
19.
So for me, Battlefield has always been a World War era shooter. Okay, so I played Battlefield 1 and 5. So for some reason, when I jumped into 2042, it just felt a bit weird with the modern age, because I guess the whole charm of Battlefield is like a full scale attack, right? Full scale battle. And with 2042 is now at 128 players, right? And so
Yes.
it just didn't feel right to be in modern gear, running in and dying. And not that I'm playing Battlefield for a realistic experience, but it felt really right when I was playing Battlefield 1 because it was trench warfare, and that's what happened, right?
Wait,
So
let me get this clear. When you mean Battlefield 1, you mean the game that came out in the Xbox One era, right?
yeah, that's Battlefield 1. That's the World War One game, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, for me, Battlefield 1 is the Battlefield 1942, the original Battlefield game.
Yeah, but that's called Battlefield 1942. Whereas the Battlefield 1 game, World War 1 game, is actually called Battlefield 1, and then Battlefield 5, remember? Yeah. So, yeah, that's what
Just
I was
want to
talking
make
about.
Sure,
Yeah, because that's like my most recent Battlefield experience, and probably the game that I played the most recently in Battlefield series. So for me, it just didn't feel quite as right. But to me, just playing solo wasn't really enjoyable, as you mentioned, because, well, first thing, due to my lack of skills in Battlefield, okay, and not knowing the maps, and it's just a big chaos, which is the charm of Battlefield, I feel like sometimes.
Yes.
And plus that once I dive in, it was cross-platform, so, I'm going to have an excuse here. Using controller is going to be picked out by the mouse and keyboard snipers, okay, obviously.
Yes.
So the first game I played, I probably averaged 30 seconds per life. I didn't get any kills actually on that night. So I was really ready to uninstall it, but I was waiting for you. So yeah, that was my Battlefield experience. But I want to add, not just all bad points. Like, I felt like the game was a lot smoother compared to our public beta a long time ago, and I felt like the graphics was a little nicer. And to note, we did mention during when we were playing that one thing impressed me the most was just the indoor areas, the outdoor, everything was just really big, and it was quite clean. So those are the good points I felt. But gameplay wise, it just wasn't really for me. So how about you, Ron? I try not to tell you how I felt before you played it because I didn't want to give any biasy to you. How did you feel?
Well, I feel nearly the same as you. For me, I was lucky enough for you to play a few rounds with me instead of going solo. Overall, the experience I have had is very similar to you, basically because the map is very big and it's really hard to find a place to start, especially with 120 human players going around. And like you said, it is the charm of Battlefield, especially when we can see a lot of actions going on, chaos going on. But like you said, it is a cross-platform game. So with the map that is so big, we got picked off by snipers very easily using mouse and keyboard. Because as a controller player, the aim assist actually works very close range instead of a long range distance. So I was actually enjoying the gameplay more when we are doing close combat. We did try to change to a sniper for around 5 minutes, and I really just can't take it. And I also found the game a little bit overwhelming. Starting by spawning in, choosing which character you have. There's more than 10 characters at the bottom, and I have no idea which one is doing what. But as we continue to play a little bit more, I start to get a feel of which characters choose to have different gadgets. I do have a few good moments when I was using the recon sniper class with a drone. We were playing in a map that we have ship containers where I was hiding behind the container and set out a drone as a recon and seeing enemy soldiers pushing us, and I keep on pinging people and saying, oh, it's coming for us. And
Mhm.
I actually saw in the live feed in the drone that two players are actually rushing forward to me. And without proper mic communication, the only thing I can do is to ping them. And that was a very good experience for me because it is a more cooperative experience rather than just chaos, fun, and shooting every time, everywhere you go. And I also found that a lot of players are using machine guns on a tank, and I was very confused.
Yeah. Yeah, let me add to that. I felt like that as well because like previously, I feel like Battlefield is really you're lured to just run in and just run in and run in because it's chaos everywhere. And like for us who are new to the game, not knowing the map layout, so you just end up running in, and then when you die, you run in again because you're gonna spawn with your
Mm,
teammates at the action, and so you'll be running in again. But then, as you mentioned in that container map, I think it was Singapore. When we slow down and try to do a bit of tactics, like with you pinging people on the drone, and then I was trying to flank them. That was a bit of good fun, right?
yes.
And like, but then back to the problem of I feel like I'm just used to more of the arena or small scale shooter now, like Overwatch or Halo or like not yet played, but as you mentioned, Call of Duty. When we were in the first map in the warehouse, like some sort of factory, and then a lot of people were inside the building fighting, and we tried to flank them around the side, right? So it felt like a good flank to go through that way, and then just far on the other side of the map was just getting shot by snipers. So or like overwhelmed by another battalion. So that was like I feel like that was probably down to us not knowing the map, obviously, but
Mm,
like in a smaller scale shooter that would have worked.
yes. Smaller scale shooters will probably make us work better together and without actually a full team. I think each battalion in Battlefield 2042 is same as any Battlefield before that have squads, which only has 4 players inside. I still don't
Yep.
think, especially now, is the player count per server is 128. So I don't feel like 4 players per battalion is enough, especially when
Yeah.
you have enemies coming from all directions and we can't really communicate.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like I am now moving. I wouldn't say moving away. I just prefer the smaller scale, arena based shooter.
Yes, yes.
It feels. I wouldn't say that you can do more teamwork, but I can definitely see the charm. And as we talked about it when we were playing, like games like Halo and Call of Duty is now opening up new game modes for Battlefield style like
Yes.
big scale battles, right? So Like if those are done really well, then I feel like Battlefield needs to start to um, change up a little bit to include more players.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Especially I've played Modern Warfare with a big battle um, gameplay, but for me, I feel like Battlefield is still a little bit more in the forefront of the big scale battle. Call of Duty 1 was,
Yep.
to my taste, is not very appealing compared to the arena shooter style 6v6 with objective based gameplay. And like you, I'm also moving towards more arena shootings because you can you can start learning the maps, learning different routes, and start doing different objectives instead of just running around and getting killed with people
Mhm.
around 2 kilometers away from the position. So
Yes. Yes.
yes, and especially right now with a lot of contender coming out, like let's say Modern Warfare again and other different games in our backlog, I don't think I'll be continuing to play the Battlefield anytime soon. What about you?
Mm, yeah, and that goes back to the charm of Game Pass because I can try the game, and if I don't like it, I would uninstall it, which I have already.
Absolutely, yes.
So that is 70 GB left. I wouldn't say it's just Game Pass because they did have like I'm sure they had many trial days and things for all players to try out. But just one more thing to like about Game Pass though.
Yes. But not saying the Battlefield 2042 is a bad game. The environment, the particle effects that I had on my Xbox Series X is very beautiful and advanced, but for us, it's just not our game. So,
Yeah.
yeah. To our
Yeah,
audience,
so definitely as you mentioned, like sorry, just before we wrap up here, like as we mentioned a few times, like we're getting picked up by snipers and things. Like, hey, like I tried the snipers, and it's
yes.
tough. And like those players who are picking us off with the vehicles and the or the sniper long range, they are really skillful. But I just feel like maybe we're used to these smaller scale battles where you can really find the snipers or at least see where they're coming from rather than being kilometers away.
Yes. Also about I think the main reason we like arena shooters is the the time per match is shorter, like 10 minutes per round, and while Battlefield can last around 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah, so if you are onto a game that is more sandbox like, you might be interested in Battlefield.
Yeah. Overall, I feel like the with the 1 year of post launch development, I do feel like now is a proper game. Like compared to the mess that we found in beta, which really put us off. So like as you mentioned, if you enjoy Battlefield and or that style of big scale shooter, I mean it's still epic, like just people running and dying, like just like my first taste in Battlefield 1, then you should definitely try it out.
Yes, there's a charm in watching a jet streaming above your head and a jeep flying past you with explosive going all around you. And if you somehow survive and go to the end point, it is quite satisfying. But for us, it's just not our game. So, to our audience, are you a chronic Battlefield player? Tell us more what you think about the game in the comment section. Maybe you can convince us to come back and join you. So, let's move on to our main part of this podcast, which is the first of three of our Game of the Year's award. Just a reminder to our audience, this is the first Game of the Year for the L2RT Gaming. Since we are not game journalists or given any game codes, we have not played every game on the market. What we will do is to list our top three games of this year starting today on our third favorite game this year and continue in our next two episodes. So, Jax, what is your first game of the year?
Okay, so we're starting from I wouldn't say the least favorite, starting from third place for each of us to the first place, right?
I don't I don't have a ranking between these three because three of them is in different kind of genre and focus. That's what
Okay,
I would say. Yeah.
sure,
Right.
sure. I've ranked it. In the end, I managed to rank it based on how much I enjoy the game, just personal opinion, of course. And so the third place in my game list. Okay, so before I tell you the actual game, a bit of the background story. Since I only have an Xbox, and in the past few years, there's not been many games. But with the launch of Game Pass, I've tried a lot of indie and AA games, and I'm actually growing an appreciation and appetite for these, because I feel like in the indie and the AA games, they are able to try out different game styles and mechanics. Because with the major AAA games, it's just too much risk for a lot of developers, and so they are mainly sticking to the trial and tested formulas. So
Okay.
back in the last 2 years, I've played two notable AA indie games I really enjoyed. Is Hades. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably my first game into the roguelike series, and also The Witcher Thronebreaker, which I never thought I'll get into Gwent and the card games,
Ah,
but like the Gwent battle along with the story really engaged me. I remember I played more than 60 hours on Witcher Thronebreaker last year.
60 hours.
So
Wow.
yeah, more than 60. So with that said, this will now bring me to the third place of my of the game I enjoyed the most in 2022. Now these three games are all new in 2022. Okay, so of course in 2022, Elden Ring is one of the biggest game in
Mm-hmm.
2022. However, it did overshadow my third place game, which is Tunic.
Ah,
And I've
yes.
checked that I've currently played around 18 hours. I have not finished the game. I feel like I'm just past halfway. So I'm gonna try and keep this as less spoilers as possible, because even though it's been out for like 9 months, I'm sure there's still people who haven't played it, and I hope if you haven't played it, you hear my recommendation, you'll try it out. So I'll try and keep it a bit less, but I will be talking into some of the mechanics. So I hope I won't spoil it for you there. So I think the actually before I talk about it, Ron, did you guess it would be Tunic? Third place?
Yes, I get it. Yeah, I think it will be one of your top three games, of course, because you have been talking all about it since I was playing Elden Ring, and we actually did an episode on that as well. And I even
Yeah.
tried it, and it was really good. But I was playing Elden Ring,
Yeah.
which was the biggest game
Yeah,
of
of
the year
course.
at that time. So, so it was not a
Yeah, there
big
you go.
surprise for me.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I think I try to think of the reason why this is one of my favorite games in 2022, and I feel like I don't want to compare it to Elden Ring again. You can watch our previous episode on it. I mean, it did come out at the same time, and the biggest common thing is you die a lot in both games. So for me, I love Tunic because it's just simple yet difficult. Like the
Mm.
simple part is the mechanics plus the different skills and buttons. I mean, there's not many combos, so that's the simple part of the game. So I feel like if you like enjoy the old school style of things like Zelda, is really close to that. It reminded me of playing Zelda on the Game Boy.
Ah,
But the
yes.
difficult part is one, there's no English in the game because it's some ancient
All
language,
right. Yes,
and
I remember that.
the combat is quite difficult, and so it leads to a lot of trial and error. So that's the difficult part. You have to try many things and explore quite a bit. And as someone who don't like exploring in games, this for some reason it just caught me, and I really enjoy trying things out and just keep going roaming over the map over and over again, and then suddenly realize, oh, I'm an idiot. I missed one simple thing, right?
Yes. Yeah, and
Yeah, exactly. So that game guide sort of thing, which looks like a 90s old school game guide, is what I
yes.
listed as one of the thing that I love about the game the most. The game guide and how the developer designed the map and the I wouldn't say the map itself, but just the gameplay. So how it introduced new skills and mechanics through you collecting different pages of the guides. Okay, so this part, little part, may be a little bit of spoiler. So if you haven't watched it, just skip ahead in 20 seconds. So one thing that I really enjoy is how it introduced the new mechanics. Things like I didn't know there was fast travel until later on in the game, and if you knew already, you could have done right at the start. But of course, you have to unlock different points, and like how you can actually level up your base stats, like health and attack
Ah, yes.
and stamina. So those all of them were slowly introduced to you via the game guide, and if you didn't pay attention to it, you really struggle like I did in the first boss until you look through the game guide again and then realize it recommend you to be at a certain level, and then you then realize, oh, you can actually level up your base stats.
Yes, I remembered you teaching me how to level up in my house
Yep.
when I was trying Tunic for the first time. And
Yep.
if I was doing it by myself, it would be, I think if you found a way to somehow, like you did, found a way to somehow level up your player with different hints, it'll be very satisfying.
Yep. So if you, for some reason, if you were observant enough in the game guide and level up earlier, then you would have progressed a little bit faster. But even without it, you could have progressed, of course, until you get to like the boss. I mean, if you're super skillful, I'm sure you don't even need to level up and still beat the boss. But
Yes.
for normal players like me, once you've leveled up, it's still well, before leveling up, I was basically getting two shot by the boss. But once I've leveled up, you can last a little bit longer with potions, or like
Okay.
equivalent to potions. Yep. So for me, another thing I really love about the game is, as I mentioned already, the simple combat. I mean, it's a bit like the old school Zelda. You have your sword, you have your shield, which you slowly accumulate and pick up. So you start with a stick, you find a sword, and then you get on to finding different magics throughout going to different areas of the map. So you find starting to build skills. And of course, it is simple, so you can only equip certain amount of items in your D-pad. Yes. So that's one thing that I really like about it. And another thing is something you really enjoy is the puzzles in games. And for
Yes.
me, I like the puzzles here because they're not too difficult. Like when I played the Breath of the Wild, when I borrowed the Switch, when I sold my Xbox, I mean, I got to the caves and like, I mean, the first one or two I spent ages, but it was fun, right? But then when
Yes.
you realize, oh my god, it's just the first of gazillion caves, and I'm like,
Yes.
I'm not up for all these puzzles, you know.
Yeah, that is a bit
And so,
overwhelming, I think. Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah, yep. Because for me, like, I feel like once you get to a puzzle, is a nice break away from the normal gameplay,
Mm.
and that's true. It kind of pace it a little bit differently. So when there's too many puzzles and I'm struggling and I don't want to look at the guide, but then I end up having to look at the guides, it's kind of like taking away from me a little bit more. So it's
Yes.
just two or three more things I really like about the game. So I'm gonna skim through some of them so we don't spend way too long in this episode like we always do. So I really enjoy the graphics. I mean, it's simple,
Yes.
it's vibrant, and it's warm for a game that I would die a lot.
Yeah, for the graphics, I remember the design of the map, and it was simple yet beautiful. And I was in this cave that I did not have a torch with me, and it did create a very beautiful environment, but also very haunting as well.
Yeah, I think they nailed it a bit. Like, it's vibrant and warm, but with the music and things, it just feels like there are parts where even in a kind of cartoonish graphic makes it a little bit scary for some part,
Mm.
or at least you know something is lurking in the shadow.
Yes.
So yeah, but if you are really struggling with all of those, one thing I love about this game is the accessibility modes. So you can turn on things like God mode, so you don't die,
Ah.
and you can turn on unlimited stamina, so you can keep
Mm.
dodging and dodging and dodging. So I like these different tiers of accessibility, and like some players will say, oh, you're cheating, you're using the helps and things, but I feel like, you know what, I mean, it's there so you don't have to use it if you feel like it's cheating.
Yes.
But for someone like me, one of the reason I kind of slowed down is because I was reluctant to use the accessibility mode and I couldn't get past one of the boss, so I
Mhm.
kind of stopped. Now I wish I could. I would just probably go back, turn on God mode, finish the boss, and continue. So that's one thing I really like about the game: the accessibility. Have you tried
Yeah.
on?
I have not tried the accessibilities, but I really wish a lot of games have more of this kind of modes.
Yeah.
And not like just God mode, but just what you said about different, say, more stamina or unlimited stamina
Mm.
will make the game more easy. Since I already bought
Yeah.
the game, or in our
Yeah.
case, it was it on Game Pass. Yeah, it is on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So if you bought the game and I will want to finish the game, and if I'm stuck, I will be open to using the accessibility options to finish it.
Mm. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Because I feel like part of the community is like really against things like that. Like as you mentioned, Souls. Some people will say, "Oh, if you have this feature, it will lose the essence of Souls. It's meant to be
Mhm.
super hard. That if you can complete it, then it's kind of like a badge of honor." I do get that
Yes.
as well, but I think in this day and age, like having the mode there, you don't have to use it. I mean, if you don't want to, and then if you really feel like it's a badge of honor, maybe one of the achievement is you didn't turn on accessibility at all. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that would kind of counter it a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we used to think like that because we were young and we have a lot of time. But as a
Yep,
aging gamer, we don't have a lot of time right now. So I used to play games on hard mode, but right now I just want
yep,
to get through the stories. I just go on normal
yep.
or easier mode so I can get on with the game and finish it instead of like what we used to do with the Halo that we tried the most difficulty
Yeah,
on it
and on
on the
Gears,
cafe. Yeah, and
remember?
on Gears, yes, yes. And we just keep on going on the same level for 3 4 hours that we don't have the
Yeah,
same time right now. So yeah,
yeah.
I think
Back
it's so.
back in the days, as you mentioned, when we're time millionaires, as everyone is when
Yes,
they're young, I think it's totally fine, and it feels great to finally beat it, right? But
yes,
nowadays, I like imagine spending 2 nights just on the same level. I'd rather just keep going on.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
so
yes.
definitely the accessibility is one of the things I like. And one of the last thing I listed, I'm sure there's more, is actually the story. Because I'm now around halfway through the game and there start to be a bit of story moments in the game. As you've tried to start, Ron, I would probably feel like you think there's not much of a story. Because you're
Yes.
thrown in without much context in the game and then you don't know what you're doing, you're just roaming around trying not to die. But you get to certain parts where a bit of story starts to reveal, and I'm not gonna ruin it, but later on, halfway through the game, you kind of go into a mountain and you see caves and you see something that you really didn't expect.
Yes.
So that really kind of blew my mind on that part. That kept me going in the game because I was like, oh, there's actually some story elements.
Yeah, I do feel like looking back now on the time I spent on Tunic is the game does not tell you the story. You kind of have to slowly discover it. It just give you a general direction and use your imagination and find out, which is the core of a old school adventure game, something more closer to life, right? You don't really know the story
Yeah.
until you find it. So it was a good touch.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna pretty much wrap this up. Like I try and think about what I didn't like about the game. I couldn't really find any, so it's kind of cheating. You know, like I was gonna put the game being a bit long, but to be honest, I feel like it's only long because I wouldn't say the game or story is long itself, but you dying and you have to figure it out. So some people who are more observant than me will probably spend a lot less time, or
Hmm.
some ones who are better at combat or timing the attacks and the patterns than me, you'll probably find it a lot quicker. So yeah, that's Tunic. After writing all this and starting to feel the game back again, I was wondering if this would be a second game, probably my second favorite. But
Ah,
maybe due
okay.
to recency bias, I haven't played this for a while, so
Yes.
maybe that's why it's now at third place. So
Well,
Ron, anything you want to add on Tunic? If not, tell us one of your top three favorite games.
yeah, I don't have much to add on to Tunic. It was a good game. I don't get around to play it, so
Yeah, so no problem. If you ever have time to burn, and one day, if you get a Steam Deck later, if I can tempt you, maybe I feel like it's a great game on handheld, right? Imagine
yes.
it on mobile. I think it would be a great game on mobile one day. So Ron, tell us what is one of your top three games this year.
Oh, one of my top three games is going to surprise you, mate.
Oh wait! Is it
So,
Battlefield?
it's not Battlefield, mate. I think mainly because I surprised myself as well because I don't find myself taking any interest in the indie game genre.
Mm.
Yes. So my game that came out this year in the year of 2022, which I believe deserve to be a game of the year, is Cult of the Lamb.
Oh, I haven't played that. I've heard so many people talk about it. I really want to try. It's on PC only, right?
It is not on PC only. It is on PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch and PC.
Oh, I guess because it wasn't on Game Pass and I'm cheap, so I didn't buy it.
I think you're just a bit more occupied by Overwatch right now. So I
Oh,
think the game came out nearly at the same time, a little bit more early than Overwatch 2. So
oh, so yeah, okay.
yes,
This is on my Steam list, so I'm waiting for the Steam Deck to arrive. Sorry, I have to mention this every single episode just in case Valve is listening, you know. And so yeah, when it arrives, this is one of the games. Tell
yes.
me about it, please.
So let's tell you a little bit about the Cult of the Lamb and why I love it so much. So basically, Cult of the Lamb is just like more like Hades instead of Zelda-like. It's a 2D roguelike game, top-down isometric and action. I would like to say action RPG because you still have character progressions, but it is also a base builder and management with a
Mm,
story behind it to move things along.
sounds like
So
everything.
yeah, it actually got a little bit of everything that I like about a game. That's why I put it in such a position in my list. So the story puts you into the hooves of a cult leader, which is the last surviving lamb, serving an imprisoned god. The main goal of the game is to free the god who resurrected you after you are being sacrificed to these four other evil gods. And as the cult leader, you will go ahead to recruit members, build a home for your followers, and go out on crusades to gather resources and level up your players. So the whole game loop is about, like I said before, it's about gathering and refine materials from within the base by building farms and workshops in different buildings. And also there's a overworld where you will visit and do different kind of activities like fishing and something a smaller game within the game is like dice game. And the second thing is you have to tend to your followers. They have three different indicators you have to manage, including faith towards you, hygiene, and hunger. And you can manage these by cooking food and keeping the base clean by sweeping up their poop and throw ups. And you can also, and you have to also inspire. You can also inspire them once a day to ensure they're loyal to you. Or if they start to act up, you can build prison to lock them up. You can also perform different kind of daily ceremonies or rituals to sacrifice the troublemakers or ascend the souls, which I actually find out is just killing them off, just like
Of
sacrificing
course.
in a more grand schemes, if you get what I mean. Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
it is a cult after all, right? It is a cult, so
yes. One of the rituals I found was you can host a banquet for your followers. And I recently just found out that this banquet is eating up the dead followers, the corpses. And I was a bit terrified after that. Before I was like, it was an easy task because I have to cook food for my followers and different kind of food will
yep,
cause different kind of effects. Like there's a 15% chance that your follower may die, or
yep,
15% chance of, or 75% chance of they will instantly poop and you have to sweep them up, which
yep,
these kind of tasks are just very tedious, especially when your followers number grows to the double digit. But
yep.
luckily, some of these tasks can be dedicated to your followers when you unlock buildings, which bring us into the third part of the game loop, which includes upgrading your character and your base. So you can build this outhouse for your followers to go to the toilet instead of sweeping up the poop on the floor. And when there is
Yep.
but still they will throw up because someone dies and they seize and they panic. And you can still build a janitor house and do that for you. You can also build different kind of houses to manage different farms. And the final part of the gameplay loop is to go out and venture on to the crusade of freeing your god. And after that, you just come
Oh,
back and do it all over again. And the best part of it
yep.
is you manage your village for 10 minutes and you go out on the crusades for another 10 minutes. So it's a 20 minutes game loops per session, which I was actually playing this game during every lunch break for 20 minutes every day. And the great thing about it is every time I play it, I find something new.
Mm. It does sound really amazing, and like with that 20-minute game loop as you mentioned. So may I ask, like you mentioned 10 minutes of building your base up. and then
Hmm.
10 minutes of the action. So will you kind of finish one type of story part like you did in Hades? You escape and then you have to do it again. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, something like that. But it's not about escaping. It's about going to the
Yeah, of course.
very
Yeah.
end and rescuing your god. I haven't actually finished the game yet, and I'm about 20 hours in, and I
Yeah.
suck at the game. But I was taking it very slow because I was doing it during lunchtime.
Well, you were hosting banquets, right? So that's why.
Yes, I was hosting banquet with my followers meet, and so basically I have to. I didn't mention it before, and the combat is about going into an area which you have 4 different doors that you can unlock, and there's a very middle one which I think is the final boss door. So the first door I was unlocked and go into a place called Dark Woods, and basically the map consists of a procedural generated dungeon type of gameplay which you can choose different routes. You will go through that dungeon choosing different routes, and you can choose different maps including different rewards. And after each if you reach the very end of that map, you'll fight a boss, a mini boss at the very beginning. And after you
Yeah.
fight that mini boss, you kind of purified that mini boss, and it condensed down back into a follower which you can recruit into your cult,
Yeah.
and it will count towards your progression to unlock a final door within that part of the map to finally beat one of the 4 evil gods at the very beginning
Yeah.
um, that you that imprisoned or I mean that sacrificed you and imprisoned your god.
Okay.
So I think right now there's four different parts of the maps. I only been past 2 of them, and I'm currently on the third one.
And that
And
is 20 hours.
that is 20 hours because some I don't really count it towards my actual playtime, because sometimes I would just leave it on pause and go out and do some other stuff before I come back and finish that session. So I would say honestly I've spent about 15 hours on it probably.
Okay. I mean, it sounds great because, like, when I read about the game slightly, I didn't read much about it. It talked about building your cult, and then, as you mentioned, the management part. And you know me, I love the management part, so I feel like building the cult and then managing your base, keeping the people happy. This might be the type of game that I really enjoy. And if it mixed with a bit of action and in like a 10 to 20 minute game loop cycle, okay, it's going to be buying this or God of War for my Steam Deck.
Yes, I think you should buy this one before you play God of War. So this is
Yeah.
just think of this as in Hades, but the combat wise is more compact compared. Is it compact? Is it a bit?
Yeah.
It's a bit
Yeah.
less than Hades, I think. You still get
Yeah.
different. You can still go out. Say Hades, over each room, you get different boons to boost your abilities. But in the Cult of the Lamp, you just can find different rooms that you can draw a tarot card that gives you some buffs only, instead of giving you a
Yeah.
completely different way to play the same ability. So
Yeah. Yeah.
combat wise is same as Hades, but not as expanded. But
Yeah.
it expanded on other part of the gaming side. I
Yeah.
mean
Exactly.
on the management side, which I love
Yeah.
because every time I go in, I got something new. So for me, it's like growing, and I like growth in games and real life. So it is my kind of the game, and that is before I mentioned the QR style that they do. Say because you are a lamp, and if you ever look at any picture of the game, you will think that it is a game for children.
I guess
They
that's the reason, right? Like
Yes,
have a cute outlook, but then an evil doing, which is
yes,
the big shock and contrast.
yes. It is a very big contrast. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. Yes, yes. So it makes a very big contrast to the other side of the theme. Say, putting on a smile and sacrificing your follower, or sometimes I feel like, who is actually the evil god here? And I
Yeah.
kind of believe that I haven't finished the game, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but
But we're
I
speculating, so
yeah, I'm just
we can speculate.
speculating. Yes. So I'm just thinking the final boss is my own god.
Yeah.
So
And then
that'll be
you
a good
become
twist.
the ultimate god.
Yes, the lamb god. So that'll be a
Yeah.
very good twist for me.
Yeah, because just hearing from you, I reckon, as you mentioned, I'm going to build onto that. I feel like, yeah, you kind of, or you do save the god, but then the extra final boss is you realize you don't want the god to take care of everything, so you
Yes,
want to kill the god and you become the ultimate.
the ultimate god, yes. So, and going on towards the audio side of the game, I actually find myself finding their playlist on Spotify and listening to them during work. So that gives you the idea how good the music is. And
Yeah.
I feel like the music brings out a lot of, because the followers don't really talk, just like in Tunic, but they do have English subtitles on it. So sometimes the sound design, the music brings out the mood of the game, of the scene, and it was just done so nicely to a 2D game that doesn't require a lot of big budget on. So I was quite impressed by it.
Yeah, definitely. Like
Mm,
I like I wanted to play this already, but once now you've talked about it, I think this will be one of the first games I get when I get my Steam Deck.
yes,
So, and I feel like the 20-minute gameplay cycle is definitely one of the things that really get me to even want to play it. Because when I play it on the Steam Deck, I'm not gonna be sitting down and playing on the Steam Deck for hours. I mean, I'll be on my Xbox if I'm doing that, right? But if I just have a little bit of time commuting or lunch break, as you mentioned, then that's a perfect game.
yes, and don't forget, is the 20 minutes game time is for you to do both side of the game, so you can still just manage the village and then just go off and come back to do another 10 minutes for the combat side. So it's actually a very good
Yeah,
balance for you, especially when you're in the car waiting for your wife or daughter to come home.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So all in all, let me wrap this up by saying this is a great game. To our audience, that this is a game that you should all try, and Jax definitely should before. I recommend you like this more than God of War.
Yeah, I think so too. All right then. So I think we should wrap this up. As you mentioned, that I feel like the if you haven't tried the Tunic or Coat of the Lamb, you should definitely try it. These are not. I don't think these games are expensive. They're not AAA games, and
Mhm.
I'm sure you'll be able to find them on sale either on Black Friday or later on Christmas sale.
Yes, exactly. I think the Cult of the Lamb in full price in US dollars was 24.99. So for this kind of price with this kind of content, I think it's really worth it. And Tunic is as well, especially Tunic is on Game Pass. So if you do on Game Pass, go out and try it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And Tunic recently, well, semi recently came out on PlayStation as well, so it's now on all
Oh,
platforms.
oh, I see. It was a timed exclusive for Xbox.
Exclusive. One of the
Oh,
rare ones.
and one of the good ones as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Ron, let's wrap this up. And
Okay.
so, for our audience, the next episode we'll be talking about our second game. So, remember to tune in.
Hope you had enjoyed this episode. And if you did, press the like button. Follow us by searching L2RT_gaming on Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can now also watch us stream our gameplay from time to time and interact with us via Twitch with our username the_Jaxmeister or Ron L2RT. And finally, remember, aim before you execute. Have a great one.